Welcome, everyone, to All Women Driven, the podcast all about women in automotive and how they got to where they are today. I'm your host, Sarah Davis. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify under All Women Driven or Beauty Mama Bear on Instagram. Don't forget to like and share where you're listening and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell if you want to get notifications when I post my next episode. If you like my channel, you should also check out the Long MacArthur Ford channel. On there, we talk all things Ford, news, and information. We do a live stream weekly on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tim and I go into a topic each week, and we have fun while we do it. If you like that channel, you should also check out the Ford Video Guide channel where he talks about everything that's going on with his vehicles and he makes modifications to them. There's also the other channels, RagnarCon, Johnny's Car Can Reviews, Bird Dog Overlanding, and All Terrain Nation. So this week's guest is Mercedes. Let's get into it. Welcome, Mercedes.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much.
So as we start this show, what do you do?
I am a freelance journalist and also PR marketer, primarily in the automotive space.
Okay. So freelance, so do you work with specific publications more often than others?
I do. I think along with a lot of other freelance journalists, you have your normal publications where you regularly write for, and then you have specialty ones that you write for here and there. So along with my husband, we are staffers at OVR magazine.
Okay.
We're feature editors there, and I contribute to a whole host of other publications. Mass market publications, excuse me. I just got off of vacation, so my brain might not be in the fastest normal mode. But mass market publications are like the New York Times. I've written for Car and Driver a few times, Autoblog, Forbes I've done a bunch of good work for, and also a lot of others that are mainly geared towards adventure travel and gear reviews and 4x4 vehicles and off-roading and things. And of course, that's where OVR is one of them and comes into play, along with many others.
Awesome. So have you always been in the automotive industry?
I haven't actually. I decided to dive in headfirst in 2018 after I decided to switch careers from near 20 years about as a commercial interior designer and project manager.
Okay. So what brought you into the automotive industry then?
You know, I've always been a gearhead. I love cars through and through. My parents immigrated from Germany, and they were always working on cars. My dad and my mom eventually were able to create and make their own business, just the two of them, and hoist. And it was welding, fabrication, and blacksmithing. And so I was always the kid either in the shop, along with my older sister before she moved to Germany, or I was at home helping, him hold the flashlight, for instance, or touching up the cars or things like that in central Wisconsin. So, not only did I play with Barbies, for instance, as a kid, I always played with Hot Wheels too. So, I think, the cars thing has always followed me around. And when I met my husband in 2000, we started dating and that was just fast and furious. He wanted to get into automotive as well. And so we moved to Oregon from the Midwest in 2006. And that's when he started as the PR side of things. He was an editor at a magazine, but then he went to the off-road industry, essentially, into PR. And so he flipped the opposite side of the desk. And I very quickly realized, okay, we bought our first 4x4. We started customizing it. We started really getting into that facet from the tuner crowd. And I realized, gosh, these vehicles can get into so many different areas that not very many people can see with normal everyday vehicles. And I just started going on some of these trips and taking my vacation around some of these trips, like Easter Jeep Safari in Moab, or, on the Sierra Nevadas in Colorado or whatnot, and just really falling in love with it. And in 2018, I decided I really needed a change. And then basically we talked to my husband and we talked to family and said, okay, we want to see if I can make this happen and follow a passion and make it into a lifelong career.
Awesome. So do you have kids or is it just you and your husband?
No, it's just my husband and myself. All of our kids are vehicles. So they have, windshields and tires and whatnot. We had two cats. for a really long time, for about 20 years or so. And they've now passed on as of a few years ago. So.
Okay. So was your family, well, you said that your dad would work on cars and whatnot. So your family was in automotive. So knowing that, was it hard to come into the automotive industry for you?
Not at all. For me, I guess I didn't realize how many skills that I already possessed that could transfer into a completely different industry. At
Mm-hmm.
that time, I didn't realize it. I thought I was kind of falling off a cliff in a way and just being like, well, I don't know when my next dollar is going to come from. Where's the next paycheck? Because the only thing that's certain with a freelancer, let me say this, is uncertainty. And with my husband's gracious help and support, he still had a full-time job and had the benefits and things like that. I knew I had that backing and his support and our family support as well, and network of friends and all over different places. And so I said, okay, I'm going to make this happen. And I always loved vehicles and especially being a woman in the industry, got to talk to a lot of different people. And
Mm-hmm.
there are many people that champion women in the industry. And I think that really helped in summation.
Yeah. So, with that, do you do a lot of off-roading and do you do any racing?
On not racing per se, where you would think it would be the first car to the finish line, you'd slide sideways, or you'd be like boulder crawling, the fastest or things. What my husband and myself and me, what I do is called road rallies, or TSD, time speed distance rallies, whether they're on road or off road. So that's completely different than what you think, maybe like Subarus going fast and slashing through the gravel, a stage rally, or any other kind of race per se, like desert races like the Mint 400 or the Baja 1000. What we do is time speed distance, or TSD rally. It's essentially precision based, or an accuracy rally, where you're given a route book that has turn by turn instructions, and it will then tell you the speed you have to go, how long you have to go to hit the next direction, turn left here at going 37 miles an hour, then go another 5.82 miles, turn right, and then go to 27 miles per hour, or things like that. And the teams that are within their class that hit that at the most perfect time throughout the whole duration win. So it's all about being perfect.
So have you competed in Rebel Rally?
I have. I've done that multiple times. I think 4 times
Okay.
now.
Yep. I just finished up talking to Shelby, and we've had Melissa and Catherine on here.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we are not shy. We are very well known to the Rebel Rally here.
That's
Um,
awesome. That's awesome.
so
Yeah.
do you have how many years did you compete in that?
4 times. I did it first in 2018 as a privateer, and then I did 3 other times after that with different manufacturers as both a competitor and also a journalist driver. So,
Okay.
whereas if my husband and myself compete together, I'm always the navigator with all different kinds of rallies. And then if I don't rally or compete with him, usually I'm primarily a driver, because then not only do I drive the vehicle and compete, I also photograph it if I'm able to, because I use mainly my own photography for articles and whatnot. And then also I review the vehicle too. So I'm a journalist testing a car with extreme conditions. So whether it's the Rebel Rally, for instance, off-roading, 1,500 miles plus or minus, or, up in the Arctic as a navigator, helping my husband navigate through time, speed, distance challenges that are right next to the Arctic Ocean in the winter. So
Okay.
my stuff can kind of be endurance related and extreme.
Yeah. So how did you get to the point where you were driving for different manufacturers? How did that get started?
Yeah, great question. So I think as a journalist, I want to try to test a vehicle in a different manner so that I can get the good, bad, and the otherwise. And then, a couple of years after, me being integrated into and starting freelance career in 2018, I thought, I wonder if manufacturers would allow me to take a vehicle on X X adventure, so to speak, for lack of better terms, rally or long trip or things like that. And started talking to them and said, hey, this is who I am. These are my credentials. This is who I can write for. these are the different outlets that I could pitch this. Could pitch this potential publication and just say, hey, this is what this rally is, or this is what this long trip, from X to Y
Mm-hmm.
location that might be 3,000 miles in a month, or whatever it may be, off road, maybe on road, and talk to them about it and see what will they say. And so then they said, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So not always, I get told no quite often, but
Mm-hmm.
it's about creating a story that's emotive and is truthful. And that's one of the things that I pride myself on. And whether I'm or partnering with a manufacturer that is an all-wheel drive company like Subaru, for instance, or 4x4 that might be Jeep or Ineos Automotive, I think the biggest thing is finding out what the vehicle's strengths are, what could be better, and writing that in an elegant way, and just really proving it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to say that I'm tenured in multiple different with multiple different vehicle manufacturers, but I think it's with them on their side allowing somebody to prove it in that way, knowing that that vehicle might not finish, or the vehicle might have a problem, or damage might occur or something like that, but putting them out there and their faith in the product too.
Yeah. So I just lost track of my question. So we'll go on. Do you have any side hobbies or gigs?
Gosh, I love to travel, and I think that comes in part with what I currently do. So does my husband, and so, for instance, we just crossed off our 50th of 50 states that we both traveled to last night in the middle of the night. So if I'm a little bit foggy brained and not talking right, it's because we just came back from Hawaii. Actually, it was our 50th state. So a lot of what we do, our work takes us traveling, but we love to travel just even personally. So I would say, traveling, meeting local people, integrating as best and as mindful as you can into different cultures, and just good food and good drink.
Okay. So what's your vehicle preference?
That's like asking a sommelier what kind of wine they like best. Vehicle preference. It depends on what I'm driving through or over, how long I need it. Do I need to camp within it? Is it a road trip that's only on road? That's hard to say. That's really hard to answer. What I can say is we own 3 different modified vehicles. We used to have 4. 3 of them were right-hand drive, turbo diesel Mitsubishis. We just recently sold a Pajero, but we have one Pajero too. It's like a short wheelbase diesel 2-door Montero derivative, if you're familiar with the Mitsubishi Montero. And then we also have a customized 1994 right-hand drive Delica Space Gear, which is a
Okay.
4x4 van. And so that we kind of outfitted as a camper van, and we do off-roading with it. We've got, winch bumper, winch on it, all sorts of other stuff on it. So similar with our Pajero. So those 2 4x4s are mainly our off-road vehicles. One is a van, like I said, you can camp in and sleep within. The other one is more of just a dedicated off-roader. And then we have a 22 Super Crosstrek. They're all manuals, but that one's also more of our mountain car, and it's outfitted to be rally ready. And we basically take that all over North America.
Okay. So have you driven many Fords?
I have actually just most recently, I was invited as media to bring in the Bronco Off-Rodeo in Tennessee. So I was there for the media day and did a lot of
Okay.
trail driving, mainly in the full size, but then also had a chance to take a quick loop in the sport too, which is great.
Okay. Yep. I got to be out there for the Bronco Sport Embargo event.
Oh, cool. Nice,
So
nice.
it is gorgeous there.
It is. It is. Anytime we have a chance to go to the East Coast, it's really pretty, and it's so different than Oregon. We live in Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a lot of different off-roading near here, but it's completely different. It's not very many deciduous trees, different climate, different terrain. We've got some desert nearby, but anytime you're in the Carolinas or Tennessee or whatnot, I mean, it's just so lush and beautiful and rolling hills, and also challenging.
Yeah. Have you been up to Maine or New Hampshire?
I have only driving wise. Those were
Okay.
when we flew into Subaru for a Subaru Fest event. We were on tour with them the last few years. with our 22 Alcan 5000 rally vehicle, we had an extra day and we were close up in that area. And I said, Andy, I haven't been to New Hampshire. I haven't been to Maine. Let's see if we can go and cross off those 2 bucket lists by having lunch in one and maybe coffee in the other. And so we did a quick road loop, so to speak, and crossed off those states. But other than that, no, not yet.
Okay. They are gorgeous.
Yes.
They do have off rodeo up there. And that one is it's not an old, it's a ski resort. And so they do the off roading on the ski slopes.
Oh, cool.
So it's used in the summer for that. In the winter, it's ski slopes.
Awesome. That's very cool.
So, who or what inspires you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I get a lot of inspiration from the people that are my family, friends, people that I support, people that support me. Seeing everybody else, especially women that push their own boundaries and continually do good work and are genuine. I've got so many amazing mentors all over the place, both men and women. I think you had recently had Sue Mead on your podcast. She's a dear friend and a mentor of mine as well. And I look at what she's done in her career, and it's like, for instance, if I can do 1/10 of that, I would say that it'd be amazing. So there's a lot of people that I draw inspiration from, and as well as the places that I go too. I think being truthful to yourself and staying humble and just learning and allowing yourself to fail and learning from those mistakes, I think is really important. So believe it or not, sometimes that draws inspiration of me going, okay, well, I just got told no from a big thing that I was trying to go after today, but hey, you know what? I'm inspired to try something different or, to go do something else. So
how can we encourage women to get more into this community?
Ask questions. I'd say nearly everybody is absolutely happy to tell you about their experiences, who they are, what they've done, and help support you in any way, shape, or form. Very rarely do I have somebody that they're like, yeah, no, I don't want to talk to you or deal with you or anything like that. Generally, everybody's pretty supportive, especially women. If you want to go rally, if you want to go race, if you want to be a mechanic, if, any of that type of stuff. I mean, there are many great nonprofit organizations too, for instance. And if you want to get into the automotive trades, we've done a bunch of stuff with the Jesse Combs Foundation, for instance, and they help a lot of women. And one of their primary goals is to do scholarships for women that are entering the automotive trades. And there's a whole network that is around JCF, for instance, that have gotten to know some of the women that have gone through some of the awardees, some of the people that are on the board. And they're just one of very many different groups of people or nonprofits or for instance, people on Facebook that have a group or a forum or things that are all supportive.
Yeah. So have you been to the Women in Automotive Conference or any of the conferences?
I haven't. I was trying to make a couple of those work, but my schedule is just so erratic. I've never been able to make them work yet.
Yet. What's your favorite off-road race that you have done?
Oh my gosh. Off-road race?
Or any race or any of your off-roading. What's your favorite?
As far as off-roading is concerned, primarily if it's a competition based, doing the Rebel Rally with different vehicle manufacturers, testing vehicles that are brand new out, sometimes not even on the showroom floor. That is great because every year is different. Every year it gets harder. I've got an awesome navigator, Emily Winslow. She's done it with me 3 times out of the 4 times. Okay. And I would have to say from a competitive standpoint, that would be great. That's kind of the number one there. If it's non-competitive based, I mean, there's so many areas that I've off-roaded in the world now that it's just amazing. It's too many to count.
Do you have any oopsie stories that you can look back and laugh on?
Oh, but every day. There's always oopsie stories. Some aren't necessarily funny oopsie stories, but I've gotten pretty good when I have all my camera gear with me. I've got a double harness and I've got, a really long 200 millimeter lens here with a full frame camera. And then I've got my wide angle on this side with a full frame. And then I've got my phone, which is, my third. so to speak. And I've had some whoopsie moments where I've misstepped and I've really injured myself. For instance, in Moab, I was writing a story for the New York Times, and that was right when the 4xEs, the plug-in electric hybrids, had just come out. It was the first time I saw one on trail, or well, on a trail, obviously off road. And I was running, on top of slick rock in Moab, trying to get to it. Not running, but just getting there quickly as I could. Just a split second, took my vision off just to see where the vehicle was. Misstepped and I didn't hit the ground, thankfully, but I just landed really hard with my left leg and just almost completely like shredded the back part of my calf.
Oh no.
So that's a big whoopsie. It took me a long time to recuperate. I could barely walk. I saved the cameras, which is really important. Didn't really save myself, but I still got some good shots. That I would not suggest that to anybody to have that as a whoopsie. But you learn that way, right? If you have whoopsies, you have to at least say, okay, well, don't do that again, idiot, or laugh at at yourself when you're like, oh, well, I did that, or I did this, or I totally botched this and it ended up in print or something. And people make mistakes, and as long as you can own up to them and own your whoopsie, whether it's funny or not, I think that's an important thing. And sometimes it can be a tough pill to swallow.
I like Von Gittin Jr. He says that people are people, and we all make mistakes. It makes you real if you make a mistake.
Oh, yeah, completely. And I think with my journey, I've failed so much, but failure is learning to me. You have to allow yourself to surrender and say, okay, well, that didn't work out. And there's humility, there's embarrassment, there's all sorts of stuff that comes with it, right? But I think the biggest thing is for you to say, okay, pull myself up, by my bootstraps, or whatever the saying phrase is. I don't know. I'm more German than American sometimes. So I know all those things wrong because I learned them wrong from my parents. But pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and say, okay, well, that didn't work. Try something different. Try it again. Keep trying. If it's something that you really want to do, keep trying. Talk to people and find out, okay, well, if I don't know how to do this, could you help me? Could you show me? And then pay it forward. I mean, that's the next biggest thing is if there are people out there, and there's a tremendous amount of people that are out there that are mentors and supporters of mine, and that I love and I cherish daily, that what can I do to help pay it forward? If they've helped me, then maybe I can help the next generation or something like that. So, I think that's really important.
Yeah. So you say that you have the photography. How did you get into that portion of it?
I've always been a hobbyist photographer back in the day when it was only film camera. So, before digital versions came out. But, my dad had an old Pentax that I had been given. And then I started shooting with Canon, and I've just been a lifelong Canon person. And I think with the creative side of it, I've always been aware of spatial relationships with each other from a perspective of the interior, right? I would pretty much design anything that would be non-load bearing walls and interiors of all different kinds of commercial projects, whether it's healthcare, whether it's office remodels, whether it's retail sustainable work, hospitalities and governmental work, healthcare. I've pretty much done a lot of that. That being said, is I never thought that creativity from the interior design perspective and seeing that through my lens or lenses could translate directly into photography. So I just started shooting, once I started going on vacations and everything. I'd shoot vehicles, I'd shoot landscapes, I'd shoot detail shots, and I just started getting better and better at it. And when I changed my career in 2018, I started saying, okay, well, usually, at least the publications that I write for, many of them don't give you any more money if you're a photographer or if you give your own photos versus somebody else's photos. But to me, it helps tell my own story of what it is, whether it's a road rally, whether it's a vehicle review, whether it's gear, stuff that we used in a how-to of how to survive, winter camping, for instance, anything. And I started using my own photography, and that's how I got a little bit better. And I've had, one of my other dear friends, Chris Collard, was a huge mentor and still is a huge mentor. He is an amazing photographer, absolutely amazing photographer. He does work for Jeep and Ram and all sorts of stuff. And he covers a lot of the races and rallies out there. And he kind of took me under his wing and has helped me with things and said, hey, this can work and this can work. And another one, Bruce Dorn as well.
Okay.
He's a Canon Master of Light. And so he shoots with Canon, and I've bought some used equipment from him and whatnot, but he's always very gracious to say, oh, this is the kind of lens that you want, and here's why. Or if I'm needing new equipment, or if, I ping him from time to time and say, hey, Bruce, do you have anything old that, that you're looking to get rid of that I might be able to get? Because camera equipment's expensive. But I always learn. I know that I've got facets in my photography that I know I need a lot of help with still, and it's ever learning and it's ever shifting, and technology changes. And but that's what talking and thankful you don't have film that you have to process every time. It's just downloading onto a computer nowadays, so that saves money. But you just when I'm full on at an event, I'll have both camera lenses, both cameras, and then my phone. So I'll actually have three that I deal with and I work with. And then I come back and I try to study it and say, okay, what didn't work? Was the speed wrong? Was f-stop wrong? All those kinds of things. And, just try to learn from whatever doesn't come out.
Yeah. So do you blog or vlog or anything like that? Or is it just writing?
So I do, along with my husband, aside from all of the publications that we write for, he's also a freelance journalist and PR marketer. And we have our own website, which is our own blog site, and then also related social media, and that's Crankshaft Culture. So Crankshaft Culture. So we've got a really active Facebook community of people. I think there's probably 11 or 1,200 people, all different kinds of vehicles, all different kinds of gearheads. Because we're eccentrics ourselves, we're not pigeonholing ourselves just in 4x4s or drift cars or classics or things like that. For us, Crankshaft Culture's got two different mantras. One, we're all united by horsepower or watts. The other one is every vehicle is an adventure. So we write about everything. We have, we're friends with just about every type of person that's a gearhead you could think of, and our community is that same way. And we really prefer it that way. So
that's amazing. I was gonna ask you, do you find it hard for women to be in automotive, or have you seen that kind of culture that has been perceived about women coming into the automotive world?
I think nowadays there's a lot more women in the automotive world, which is wonderful and great. And there's a lot of very strong women in automotive, and they help other people, which is fantastic. I think there is still perception of, you're just a woman, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And you have to have a thicker skin, because there still are some people out there that are like, don't want to give you a shot, or you have to work 5 times harder for the same type of thing, or maybe not get paid as much, or, all those types of things. But for me, there have been so many champions in my life that have supported my switch in my career, and longstanding people, both men and women, that have supported, like I mentioned, Chris Collard, Bruce Dorn, Sue Mead. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Yeah. And so for me, I want to do my best to help pay it forward and help other people. I get pinged quite often about, somebody says, well, I want to get into writing. How did you start? Or photography sometimes, and I'll tell them, this is how I did it. These are some of the challenges I had, and what some of the pitfalls are. Because, as from a writer perspective, one of the biggest things is there are a good amount of people that want to come into journalism or be a writer and have their names in flashing lights and have a byline and say, wow, I've written an article for such and such publication. But sometimes they don't want to pay you. Sometimes it's like, oh, but you get your name in print, and these people might jump at it. But that brings all the rest of us trying to make a full-time living at it down, because then, this publication that might be able to get free articles or free stuff coming in, but then that lessens us and our capability of trying to make a livable wage. So there's a lot of different parts and pieces to it, and I am pretty open and honest about that, because I didn't know necessarily coming into it what to expect. You can really, really bust your hump and not make much money being a journalist, but a lot of it is passion. So it's all about the give and the take, and having hobbies or having another gig on the side too, and making it work. So I think the best thing for me is if somebody can learn from any of the people that are on your podcast, not just me, but Shelby, or whoever else, Sue, all of the rest of the people that have been in your podcast, and just take those little nuggets of goodness back and say, okay, let me try. You can always fail, but you can always go back to what you were
Mm,
doing. That's the biggest thing. And it took me years to figure that out, that you can always go back. If you wanted to, just go back,
yeah.
do whatever you're doing.
Yeah. That's a great advice. I love that. Do you go into dealerships a lot? Have you seen what the cultures are around you?
Oh, completely. I mean, Andy and I typically will jointly buy a vehicle, whether it's a flying by with a random person that has one of their right-hand drives. We did that twice in Texas, one in Houston area, one in Austin, and then drove all the way back to Oregon with said both Pajeros, different
Mhm.
times. And then the other one I actually wrote a New York Times story on. This was right as COVID was just first starting to open up. The right-hand drive van, the Delica Space Gear that we have, which is also a stick shift. Everything we drive is manual, and those are really rare to find them in a stick shift. Of course, it was where? Florida. So we were either going to buy it sight unseen and ship it all the
Mhm.
way back, but with something like that, it was like, we could self-isolate, like pack food. We packed our camp gear. We ended up going out there, packed all of our camp gear, Mountain House Foods, all that type of stuff and everything, and basically slept in the van and Love's truck stops all the way back, masked up. And the only time we really interacted is when we needed to go to the bathroom or when we fueled up, and we had our masks, hand sanitizers, gloves, everything. And I wrote that story. That was from a dealer, so to speak, that dealt with those types of vehicles, and he was nothing but fantastic with us.
Mhm.
Also masked up and all that stuff when we did the paperwork and everything.
Yeah.
So we have more interesting moments like that, but we also have tried to buy just regular vehicles. For instance, there's a dealership that's not too far away in Washington that we tried to go to, and we were trying to buy a Subaru WRX from them. And we knew that this dealership was not a good dealership at all. They've got a very big reputation where we are. And long story short, it of course was the hatchback version that we wanted. They were doing away with the hatchbacks. It was a color that we wanted, the trim level that we wanted. And so it was very rare. It's like a ghost car. You couldn't even find it. So we
Mhm.
tried to get them to trade with another dealership with the one we wanted to buy through the dealership, and they wouldn't do it. They said, we just, of anybody of those dealerships, that's the dealership they wouldn't want to deal with. We're like, great. So we had to go up there, and we, tried to play, and we knew exactly what all the monies are. We know what the invoice is. We know what this,
Yep.
that. We're not going to pay for the dealer markup, blah, blah, blah. And they did not. We finally were almost ready to settle on a number, except it was within, I think, $5 or $10 per monthly payment. And they said, oh, it's only $10 per month. And I said, yeah, it's only $10 per month. Why don't you come down? We're still giving you money. It's still above invoice, blah, blah, blah. And they wouldn't do it. So we walked. But the thing that was a clincher with all of that is they kept, I can't remember if it was the driver's license or registration number. And through all of that back and forth and back and forth, we were there for such a long time. They kept one of those things after we left, and we realized, oh my God, they still have our information. So we had to drive all the way back up to said dealership and like get all of our crap back. I was so angry, and we went online afterwards to find out that that was a common tactic that they used to get people to come back in there. So
Mm.
I don't know if it was an accident. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's another dealership that used to be called Wentworth in the Portland area. Now they changed their name. I think they're just, I can't remember their name. Anyways, they changed from Wentworth into another, they're in the inner east side in Portland, and they've been great. We've bought 2 vehicles from them, and they've just been
Okay.
absolutely fantastic. So
Yeah.
exact
Yeah.
opposite. So,
So, and I think sometimes I was thinking about it, sometimes the customers are the difficult part.
oh yeah,
Um, you have to know how to work with the customers, but
yeah,
also the
exactly.
customers need to give some leeway to some people.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, we've had instances where we were in the vehicle taking a test drive, and then the car salesman that was in the back seat was like, "Oh, da 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 da," whatever, statistics and rattling things off, and we knew they were totally wrong, completely wrong. Yet they were so confident in exactly what we were saying, but they don't know that we're both automotive journalists, and we've done our research, and we know a lot about cars as it is,
Yeah.
and then extra because we're wanting to buy this vehicle or drive it or whatnot. And so we won't say anything, but it'll just be like, yep, no, not
Yeah.
going to do that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But, I think the biggest thing is for and not to make it a gender thing, but for customers or for staff to give everybody that is the opposite sex or however you identify the benefit of the doubt, or just saying,
Mhm.
here, this could be a learning situation or a learning experience versus
Yeah.
being like, oh, you're just a woman coming in by yourself, to
Mhm.
a dealership. Yeah, no, I'm going to take you for a ride or something. I mean, let's hope that that's not out there, but I'm sure that's still out there, and
Mhm.
vice versa, where you can be woman and just not liking dealing with men, because men might come in, and if you are a salesperson, for instance, or if you're one of the managers and they see you as a woman, that they don't want to deal with you or whatnot. I mean, it can go all sorts of different ways, but
Yeah.
I hope to think that if you're genuine and you're spot on with your response, saying, I don't know, but let me find out somebody that can, that will cut the crap, if they're trying to trip you up or something.
Usually does.
Oh yeah, because they will understand, okay, your limits. You're not going to say something knowing that it's wrong. And if you're not sure, you'll just say it. And that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yep. Well, it has been wonderful talking to you. Thank
Likewise.
you so much. We will see you later.
That sounds great. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another week of All Women Driven, the podcast where we are looking into the past to drive women forward in the future in automotive. Join us in 2 weeks for another episode, and we'll see you later.